Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. On this episode, I want to talk about Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin is another one of those bands, like others I've talked to up to this point, where I don't really remember learning about them. I feel like I've always known about Led Zeppelin. Growing up in the 90s and listening to classic rock radio stations and modern rock radio stations, I just remember hearing Led Zeppelin all the time and being familiar with a good chunk of their work. Of course, it was radio songs, popular stuff, but there's enough of them that I just really remember hearing Led Zeppelin on the radio and liking it, loving it, becoming familiar with the songs. When I was going to the library, that was one of the bands that I really wanted to get to learn more about, and so I got most of their albums from the library at some point when I was in sixth grade into seventh grade, and I spent a lot of time researching and getting into that band. There's a lot of reasons to like Led Zeppelin. One of the things that always stuck out to me is kind of in their time in history, they kind of felt like the very first band that had what you'd consider rock god status, with several of the members of the band. I'm a big Beatles fan. I love the Beatles, but I don't look at George Harrison and think he's a guitar god. But you do with Jimmy Page, right? He just had that persona and the chops, memorable songs, solos, the things, his contribution to the work is iconic and masterful. And so many of the guitar players that I wanted to play like and that I looked to were all inspired by Jimmy Page. The same could be said with the other members, with John Bonham as the drummer. He kind of set a new pace for what drummers could and should do, and a lot of people still kind of revere him as one of the greats of all time. Robert Plant, his vocal style, his showmanship, his persona on the stage was unmatched. And so I think they were like the whole package of what we would consider a modern day rock band, the first to really do it well. I'm a big fan of the fourth album of Led Zeppelin 4, like everybody else is. I remember getting that one from the library several times. My older sister Kelly had it. I remember borrowing hers as often as I could before I got my own copy. But that album is just ingrained in my own adolescence, and I know all the songs by heart. I just have a lot of wonderful nostalgia to that record. And in hindsight, it's probably not even their best work. It's just the most popular. They have standout tracks on every single disc they ever recorded, and it was one of those bands that they ended well too. I think there is such a thing of overstaying your welcome, and some of my favorite bands I can fully acknowledge have stuck around a little too long and didn't bow out gracefully. And it kind of shows, you just don't write the same music. It doesn't have the same flair. Vocals start to dry out. Even guitar playing starts to change over time. But I think when you look back on Led Zeppelin's body of work, it will stand the test of time and be iconic forever. So the song that I want to play today is one of the Levee Breaks. This is one of my favorite tracks from the group. Probably an underrated song from the fourth album, when there's so many standout radio songs on there. This is definitely a highlight for me. It's a funky tuned song. It's tuned in open F, so just strumming plays an F chord, an open F chord, and so it's tuned as C F C F A C, I believe is the way that's tuned. And Jimmy Page originally played a bunch of these riffs with a slide, with like a glass or a metal slide. I don't have something like that. I never ever picked one up, and so I'll do my best to play it as close to the way it's supposed to sound. And I remember reading somewhere someone broke down Led Zeppelin 4 one time and kind of showed how each individual song is drastically different than the next, and how entire musical genres could have spawned from one of those songs. Progressive rock or progressive metal could have come from this track, and doom as a genre could have come from this track. It was a fascinating read, and that's kind of what I think of when I listen to Led Zeppelin 4, is all the songs are very unique, and they tell a really big story put together. And When the Levee Breaks is an awesome outro jam to that record. I really love it. I'll have a copy of it down below if you haven't heard it. It's a really fun song. Go give it a listen.